Hey everyone, it's Laura here from makingcardsisfun.com, and it's time for another Saturday Sunday card and video. Today I'm going to start out with some white watercolor paper, and this is by Simons Stamp. I already cut it to 4¼ inch by 5½. So I really like the color mint, and it's just such a beautiful color, but unfortunately the color isn't available in Distress ink. So I'm going to create my own, and the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to use some white watercolor paints, and I got these many years ago, and I actually used them for crafts when I was still little, so these are really good because I have them for ages. So I'm using lots of water, and then I'm going to pick up the white paint. Okay, so I'm just going to add the paint to my crafts mat. Okay, there we go. So first I'm going to use tumbled glass distress ink, and I'm just going to also press down my ink pad and add the color to my craft sheet, and I'm going to do the same for mowed lawn, but I'm just going to use a very small amount of it. So I'm using a lot of water again to pick up the blue ink. So I'm just picking it up with my water brush, and then I'm adding it to the white paint. And this actually already looks a little bit like a mint color, but it just needs a little bit green as well. So I'm using a lot of water, and I'm just taking a very small amount of green ink. So now I'm going to use my paintbrush again to start watercoloring on my piece of white watercolor paper. I'm just going to start spreading the color. Okay, so I'm super impatient and I really can't wait until it is dry, so I'm going to use my heat gun to speed up the drying process. Okay, so it's dry now, and as you can see, the color is super light, so it just needs to be a little bit more intense. So I'm going to actually make a new mix of color. So again, I'm going to add some white first. Okay. Then I'm going to add some blue. And then a tiny bit of green as well. Okay, so this needs more blue. And then also some more green. Okay, so now I'm going to again start adding the color. The first color that I'm going to add is sponge sugar. Or no, I'm actually going to use sponge sugar and dried marigold first to create this really gorgeous peach color, or it's more of a coral maybe. So I'm going to add sponge sugar and dried marigolds to my craft sheets. And then first I'm going to mix the colors together. So I'm going to start adding water to the sponge sugar ink. And I'm going to take a very small amount of dried marigold. I'm just going to mix these two colors together. And then you will end up with this really beautiful color. By the way, the color scheme, or the whole card actually, was inspired by this image that I saw over at Pinterest. And as you can see, this is a really gorgeous color scheme. It's peach, pink, yellow, mint, and orange. And I'm going to use all these colors. Okay, so I'm just going to start adding the ink. It's a little bit pale at first, but when I'm done adding all the colors, then I'm going to heat set it again, and then I'm just going to add a second layer. Okay, so now I'm going to add only spun sugar. It's just a really beautiful pink color. So I'm not using a lot of water this time because I just don't want the color to be super soft. Okay, I'm going to add it over here. Okay, I also want some yellow, so I'm going to use the Squeeze Lemonade's Distress Ink Pads. And I'm going to make the color a little bit softer because this is a really bright yellow. So I'm going to add some white watercolor paint on my craft sheet, and then I'm going to pick up the yellow ink, and then I'm going to just start mixing the white and the yellow together, and then you will just end up with this is kind of a pastel yellow color, so it's really beautiful. Okay, and I'm only going to add a small amount of yellow because I'm not a huge yellow fan, but this time it looks really pretty. So now I'm going to heat set the whole piece, and then I'm going to start adding more color so it will be a little bit more brighter. But I already think that the colors look really pretty together. And it also kind of reminds me of the colors in my craft room. Okay, so I'm going to heat set it. Okay, so I just heat set the whole piece, and now the paint is all dry. And as you can see, the colors really blended into each other. So now I'm just going to add some more color. So I still have the yellow over here, and then I'm going to add some more spun sugar and dried marigolds. And then also more of that mint color. Okay, so I'm first going to start adding more of the mint. So first I'm taking some white paint, some white watercolor paint. So I'm taking one over here. Okay, lovely. Then I'm going to add some blue to it. And a tiny bit of green as well. Okay, so I'm just going to color again using the same colors, and I'm going to color just over the pieces that are dry. Okay, so the watercolor piece is completely finished, so now I'm just going to set it aside so it can dry completely. Okay, so I'm also going to make a sequin shaker today, and I'm using the Neapolitan paper pad by Dear Lizzie for that. This little pattern over here, and I already cut it to 2 3/4 inch by 2 inch. And then I also have a little piece of acetate, and it's the same size. Okay, so I'm going to create a sequin shaker. So first I'm going to add a frame of dimensional adhesive. Okay, so I just added my second row of foam adhesive. So now I'm going to peel off all the backer sheets again. Okay, so now it's time to start filling up the shaker, and I'm going to use Pretty Pink Posh sequins for that. So the first sequins that I'm going to use are the sparkling clear sequins, and these are by far my favorite. So I'm just going to put them in here. Okay, so and then I'm also going to add some of the Springtime Mix Sequins by Pretty Pink Posh, and these just have some really cool colors in them. Just really like them. Okay, that's good. Okay, so now I'm going to close the sequin shaker, and I'm going to just adhere the piece of acetate on there. There we go. And now we can just shake, shake, shake with it. Just really cool. Okay, so of course I still need to cover up the frame of foam adhesive, and I'm going to do that with some washi tape. And I'm going to use the Freckled Fawn Mint Chevron washi tape for that. So I'm just going to adhere it on top of the foam adhesive. Okay, so I just die cut a feather out of some watercolor paper, and I used this feather from the Fanciful Feathers die cut set by W+9. So now I'm going to use the coordinating stamp set, and this is also called Fanciful Feathers. I'm going to stamp this feather over here. I'm going to use Ranger Jet Black ink. Okay, so I already added all the colors that I need to color my feather on my craft sheet. So this is dried marigold, this is spun sugar, then this is the regular white watercolor paint, then mowed lawn and tumbled glass. And I'm first going to mix dried marigold and spun sugar together. Okay, and then I'm just going to start coloring the feather, and I'm using a very fine paintbrush. Okay, so now I'm going to stamp a sentiment, and I'm using the same Fanciful Feathers stamp set. So I'm going to grab an acrylic block, and I'm going to mount it together. I'm going to use silver ink by Hero Arts to stamp my sentiments. I'm just going to ink up the stamp, and then I'm going to stamp it. Okay, so I'm going to stamp it over here. Going to use some dimensional adhesive to adhere the feather on the sequin shaker, and I'm using these small squares. Okay, so over here I have a standard size white card that I cut out of some white Nina cardstock, and I'm going to adhere the watercolor piece onto it. So I'm just going to use my regular Tumble Mono stamp runner. I'm going to adhere my sequin shaker on the card using Tumble Mono multi-glue. Okay, so that finishes up the card for this week's Saturday Stamp Day card and video. Be sure to check out my blog on Monday because there will be a fun giveaway and you really don't want to miss it. So thank you so much for watching. I will be back next week. Bye!